You're listening to Underground USA News.
Tuesday, August 19, 2025. A recent federal appeals court decision has significantly weakened the Congressional Review Act, a critical tool allowing Congress to repeal burdensome regulations, thereby shifting power back to unelected Washington bureaucrats. The ruling, criticized by Senator Eric Schmitt, permits federal agencies to reinstate regulations previously nullified by Congress and the President, undermining the will of elected representatives and threatening American businesses and families with unchecked regulatory overreach. This decision, seen as a victory for the administrative state, raises concerns about the erosion of democratic accountability, as it allows bureaucrats to bypass explicit congressional disapproval. Critics argue this judicial overreach must be addressed to restore the balance of power intended by the Constitution. The Trump administration is reportedly negotiating to acquire a 10% stake in Intel, a move aimed at strengthening American semiconductor manufacturing and national security by potentially converting Intel's $10.9 billion in CHIPS Act grants into equity. The government seeks to support the struggling chipmakers' efforts to regain its competitive edge, particularly for its delayed Ohio factory hub. While Intel's stock dipped 3.7% amid market reactions, the deal could provide critical backing for domestic production, aligning with Trump's broader push to reshore vital industries. Critics, however, question whether this intervention addresses Intel's deeper competitive challenges against rivals like TSMC and NVIDIA. Foreign holdings of U.S. Treasuries have soared to a record $9.13 trillion in June 2025, reflecting robust global confidence in the stability and liquidity of American government debt. Even amidst concerns over a $37 trillion national debt and trade policy volatility, Japan leads as the top holder with $1.147 trillion, followed by the United Kingdom at $858.1 billion, which has surpassed China, whose holdings remain steady at $756.4 billion. The surge, driven largely by private investors purchasing $287.5 billion in May, underscores the enduring appeal of treasuries as a safe haven asset, bolstered by higher yields amid inflation concerns and tariff impacts. While critics question the sustainability of U.S. fiscal policies, the data suggests that global investors continue to view the U.S. as a bedrock of financial security, reinforcing the dollar's role as the world's premier reserve currency. The Tennessee Valley Authority has become the first U.S. utility to commit to purchasing power from a small modular nuclear reactor, marking a significant step toward innovative, carbon-free energy solutions. In a deal with Kairos Power and Google, the TVA will acquire up to 50 megawatts of electricity from the Hermes 2 plant in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, by 2030, to supply Google's data centers in Tennessee and Alabama. This collaboration highlights the growing demand for reliable, clean energy to support energy-intensive sectors like AI and data processing, while showcasing the potential of advanced nuclear technology to meet future energy needs efficiently and safely. Critics, however, caution about the high costs and regulatory hurdles, with some advocating for alternative renewables like solar and wind, though supporters argue the project's long-term benefits outweigh initial investments. Jeremiah Yusuf Sawik, a 25-year-old from Everett, Massachusetts, was arrested for a series of politically motivated vandalism acts targeting the Massachusetts State House, MIT buildings, and a George Washington statue, as well as leaving homemade improvised explosive devices on Boston Common, associated with the extreme anti-Zionist group Direct Action Movement for Palestinian Liberation. Sawik is accused of splattering paint mixed with feces and attempting to scrawl "divest" or "divert" on State House property, actions that raised serious public safety concerns among elected officials. Charged with vandalism, destruction of a veterans memorial, and possession of an explosive device, he was held on $30,000 bail, with his mother also arrested for assaulting a detective during a related search. These incidents highlight the dangers of unchecked radical activism, which authorities say Sawik promoted through social media calls for targeting government and corporate entities. Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters has introduced a new certification test for teachers relocating from progressive states like California, Illinois, and New York to ensure educators align with Oklahoma's commitment to traditional values and American exceptionalism. The assessment, consisting of approximately 50 multiple-choice questions, evaluates knowledge of the U.S. Constitution, biological differences between sexes, and the importance of religious freedom, aiming to safeguard classrooms from what Walters describes as radical leftist ideology. Critics, including the American Federation of Teachers and local Democrats, have labeled the test a MAGA loyalty test and warned it could exacerbate Oklahoma's teacher shortage, while supporters argue it protects students from divisive agendas. The test, finalized and set to roll out soon, has sparked debate over its legal standing and potential impact on attracting quality educators. President Trump's 30-day federal takeover of Washington, D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department, initiated to curb violent crime, has sparked varied responses but found backing from some residents in the city's most troubled neighborhoods. In Southeast D.C., locals initially skeptical now praise the federal presence for clearing troublemakers without aggressive tactics, noting safer streets in areas like Congress Heights. Data from the D.C. Police Union shows significant crime reductions, with carjackings down 83%, robberies down 46%, and overall violent crime down 22% in the first week. However, critics, including the D.C. Council and Attorney General Brian Schwab, call the move an overreach, arguing violent crime was already at a 30-year low before the intervention. While some residents welcome the added security, others in high-crime wards like Ward 8 question why federal agents are more visible in tourist-heavy areas than in their neighborhoods, raising concerns about the operation's focus and long-term impact. Mississippi has joined 3 other Republican-led states, Ohio, West Virginia, and South Carolina, in deploying 200 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C., to bolster President Trump's federal initiative to combat crime and homelessness in the nation's capital. As announced by Governor Tate Reeves on August 18, 2025, the deployment follows Trump's controversial move to place the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under federal control, a decision prompted by his administration's claim that crime in the city is out of control. Despite data indicating a 26% drop in violent crime in 2025 compared to 2024, critics, including D.C. officials, argue the move undermines local autonomy, while supporters like Republican U.S. Representative Mark Harris of North Carolina praise it as a model for restoring law and order nationwide. The operation, which includes up to 1176 troops expected in the coming days, aims to enhance public safety through presence patrols and support for federal law enforcement. In a heartbreaking incident in Tremonton, Utah, 2 police officers, SGT Lee Sorensen, 56, and Officer Eric Estrada, 31, were fatally shot, and a sheriff's deputy, along with his service dog, were wounded while responding to a domestic disturbance call on Sunday night. The suspect, identified as Ryan M. Bate, 32, allegedly opened fire on the officers as they arrived at a residence following multiple 911 hang-up calls, highlighting the unpredictable dangers law enforcement faces in such situations. Bystanders courageously persuaded Bate to drop his weapon, leading to his arrest on charges of aggravated murder. The injured deputy was released from the hospital, and the service dog is recovering, as the community mourns the loss of 2 dedicated officers who exemplified the bravery and sacrifice inherent in their oath to protect and serve. California Democrats have unveiled a controversial redistricting plan aimed at flipping 5 Republican-held U.S. House seats, a move framed as a counter to Texas Republicans' efforts to secure 5 additional GOP seats through their own map redraw. The proposed map, submitted to the state legislature, targets GOP incumbents like Doug LaMalfa and Kevin Kiley by reshaping districts to favor Democrat voters, potentially reducing Republican representation in California's congressional delegation to just 4 seats. Critics, including former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and GOP leaders, argue this undermines the state's independent redistricting commission and risks legal challenges, while Democrats, led by Governor Gavin Newsom, defend it as a necessary response to partisan gerrymandering elsewhere. Even though California Democrats' purview is exclusive to the state, the plan, which requires voter approval in a November 2025 special election, has sparked heated debate over fairness and transparency in the redistricting process. The U.S. Army's Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas has opened the nation's largest immigrant detention facility, dubbed Lone Star Lockup, with an initial capacity of 1,000 beds, set to expand to 5,000 by 2027, funded by a $1.2 billion Department of Defense contract. The facility aims to support the Trump administration's aggressive deportation goals, processing detainees for repatriation while providing legal access, medical care, and accommodations. Republican leaders, including Senator John Cornyn, praised the center as a critical step in addressing illegal immigration, though critics raise concerns about oversight and conditions. This move reflects a broader push to double detention capacity nationwide, backed by significant congressional funding. As Hurricane Erin, a powerful Category 3 storm, churns through the Atlantic, the U.S. East Coast braces for significant impacts, including life-threatening rip currents and potential coastal flooding, particularly along North Carolina's Outer Banks. While the storm is not expected to make landfall, its massive size and strength, previously reaching Category 5 with winds up to 160 mph, have prompted mandatory evacuations in vulnerable areas like Hatteras and Ocracoke Islands, and heightened alerts from Florida to New England. Local authorities and meteorologists warn of dangerous surf conditions, with waves up to 15 feet and heavy rainfall that could disrupt travel and infrastructure, urging residents to heed evacuation orders and avoid coastal waters. This storm underscores the need for preparedness and vigilance, as even offshore hurricanes can wreak havoc on coastal communities. The United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, which receives approximately 30% of its $500 million annual budget from U.S. taxpayers, is under fire from the Trump administration for spending on progressive programs like gender diversity training, gender mainstreaming in military operations, and therapeutic yoga sessions, including a Resilience Through Yoga program promoting Ayurveda and meditation. Critics, including a Western diplomat and a senior congressional staffer, argue that UNIFIL has failed to curb Hezbollah's growing influence in Lebanon, with evidence of tunnels and weapons caches near UNIFIL facilities, prompting the administration to consider blocking a French-led resolution to renew the force's mandate. This move aligns with President Trump's broader push to eliminate wasteful spending on ideological initiatives and reassess ineffective international commitments, especially as European allies like France and Italy advocate for a one-year extension of UNIFIL's mandate to prevent a security vacuum exploitable by Hezbollah. President Trump has firmly stated that no U.S. troops will be deployed to enforce a potential peace deal in Ukraine, emphasizing a policy of avoiding American military involvement in the conflict. Speaking amid ongoing negotiations with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Trump's stance reflects his commitment to reducing U.S. overseas entanglements, placing the burden of security guarantees on European allies. This approach aligns with his campaign promises to prioritize American interests and avoid costly foreign interventions, while urging Europe to step up in supporting Ukraine against Russia's territorial gains. Critics argue this could weaken Ukraine's position, but supporters see it as a pragmatic move to prevent escalation and preserve U.S. resources. President Trump outlined a firm position ahead of his August 18, 2025 White House meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, emphasizing that Ukraine must cede Crimea and forego NATO membership to secure a peace deal with Russia. Trump suggested Zelensky could end the war swiftly by accepting these terms, following his recent summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. European leaders, joining Zelensky in Washington, expressed concern that Trump may pressure Ukraine into concessions favoring Moscow, while Zelensky insists on robust security guarantees and rejects territorial compromises, citing past Russian aggression. The high-stakes talks, supported by key European allies, aim to navigate a path toward peace, but Trump's focus on immediate results and his call for a trilateral meeting with Putin and Zelensky underscore the challenges ahead. A major US-EU trade deal, initially celebrated as a breakthrough to avert a transatlantic trade war, has been delayed due to contentious disputes over the European Union's Digital Services Act, which U.S. negotiators view as a threat to free speech and innovation. The DSA's stringent content moderation requirements, aimed at curbing misinformation and harmful content, have raised alarms in Washington, with critics arguing they impose undue burdens on American tech giants like Meta and Google, potentially stifling First Amendment protections. The disagreement has sparked broader concerns about the EU's regulatory overreach, with some accusing Brussels of using trade talks to enforce a global censorship model. As negotiations falter, the philosophical divide between America's commitment to free expression and Europe's precautionary approach threatens to reshape digital trade standards and economic relations across the Atlantic. Hamas has accepted a U.S.-backed proposal for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza, including the release of 10 live hostages and 18 deceased hostages, in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Following intense negotiations mediated by Egypt and Qatar, the deal, described as 98% similar to a previous U.S. proposal, comes as President Trump urged Israel to escalate military pressure on Hamas, arguing that only decisive action will secure the hostages' release. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, while noting Hamas is under significant pressure, awaits the written response to assess its acceptability. Critics, including some Israeli security officials, question whether further military escalation will achieve what nearly 2 years of conflict have not. While the agreement aims to avert a major Israeli offensive in Gaza City, still others point to Hamas's past use of ceasefires to regroup and rearm. This development reflects a complex balance of diplomacy and force, with Trump's influence shaping the path toward a potential resolution. In a remarkable display of law enforcement efficiency, Dubai police successfully foiled a meticulously planned heist of a rare $25 million pink diamond, apprehending 3 suspects of Asian nationality within just 8 hours of the crime. The criminals, who had plotted for over a year, lured a European diamond trader to a villa under the pretense of a wealthy buyer, using rented luxury cars and upscale hotel meetings to gain trust before stealing the 21.25-carat gem during a staged inspection. Leveraging advanced AI technology and specialized teams, authorities tracked the suspects to separate hideouts, recovering the diamond hidden in a small refrigerator before it could be smuggled to an Asian country. The jeweler praised the police's rapid response, reinforcing Dubai's reputation as a secure global diamond trading hub where law and order prevail.
You're listening to Underground USA News.